As we mentioned at the top of the hour tonight, President Trump announced that he's going to sign an executive order directing the Secretary of Homeland Security to pay TSA agents and end the chaos at our nation's airports. Now, very clearly, he's trying to take credit for solving the problem here. That's to state the obvious. But remember, this is a problem he himself created and has perpetuated now for weeks. I mean, Democrats have repeatedly offered to pass a standalone bill funding the TSA. Even Republicans, like Senators John Kennedy and Ted Cruz, got on board with that plan. But Trump refused. He could have signed this executive order at any point over the past month, or he could have agreed to the deal Democrats were offering him. But he chose not to. He created this mess, and now he's trying to take all of the credit for fixing it. If you don't believe me, here was Republican Senator John Kennedy saying it as clear as can be earlier this week.
We could have had TSA paid by the end of the week, but the president said no deals.
Now, to make matters worse, because Trump waited so long on this, just funding TSA doesn't mean the agency is now suddenly fixed. I mean, earlier this week, the head of TSA told Congress that nearly 500 TSA agents have quit since the start of the partial shutdown. She added that it takes 4 to 6 months to train new TSA officers. So even though Trump has now all of a sudden decided that he wants to fund the TSA, a lot of damage has already been done. It won't be that easy to reverse. He's always been a ball of chaos. He's always makes messes that take a long time to clean up. But in just the past few weeks, he has created crises after crises that Americans aren't just reading about in the news, but are experiencing firsthand. I mean, for example, anywhere in the country, if you turn on any local TV news broadcast tonight, I bet you will see stories like this one.
Gas prices in the state of Texas have gone up by more than $1 in just the last month. And with strikes now targeting critical oil infrastructure in the Middle East, we may be in for just the beginning.
Gas prices in Utah are close to $1.20 higher per gallon than a month ago.
Gas prices here in Maine rose once again this morning.
Gas prices staying high and getting higher in Las Vegas.
Washingtonians paying $5.27 per gallon on average.
The average price for a gallon of regular gas in California is now $5.82.
Everywhere. Today, oil prices rose yet again after Donald Trump removed his deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz from this Friday to April 6th. And of course, that timeline really means nothing, as we've just been talking about. But even if Trump does end up negotiating an end to the war and reopening somehow the Strait of Hormuz next month, and I don't know how that will happen, experts say that gas prices here at home are likely to remain high for a very long time. One economist telling the New York Times that even if the war were to end soon, he thinks it would still take another 6 to 8 weeks for oil production and shipments to normalize. That's going to have a real impact on Americans' pocketbooks. And because Trump owns this crisis so completely, it could also have a real impact on American politics. Take a listen to this young voter that MS Now interviewed at a gas station in New Jersey last weekend.
My car here typically is only $35 to fill, but now it's in the $45, $50 range, and it's a little ridiculous.
Have you ever voted for a Democrat?
I have not yet, no.
Do you think you will now?
I'd say I'd be more open to it.
He'd be more open to it. There's something there. Joining me now is New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill. Governor Sherrill, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I really appreciate it. I just want to start. There's just been new reporting this evening about Donald Trump saying he intends to sign an executive order to pay the TSA. I wanted to ask you about it because I think a lot of people who see that headline may think, this is solved. I'm going to go to the airport tomorrow and the lines will be short. Do you know anything more about it or how it would work in terms of paying TSA agents and how people should anticipate if he does sign it soon, how long it will take to get things back to normal?
As usual, this is completely ridiculous. There's no plan. He makes some tweet. God only knows how the Republicans are going to respond to this. But certainly if he could have done this, he should have done it already. The idea that he's putting these ICE agents in the airports, from what we've heard, they're just milling around. They don't know what to do. You just put out the information that it takes months to train TSA agents, so just putting this sort of untrained militia in the middle of an airport just gets in the way of everyone. We're still hearing, despite all these ICE agents, Houston still was taking about 3 hours to get through the security line. It's really striking to me, everywhere I turn, things that were, not the concern. We have a lot of concerns in New Jersey, but things that you just took for granted, taking a flight somewhere, being able to get through an airport line and security without too much drama, and then get on your flight and not worry that there might not be air traffic controllers focused on your flight, or that you might get into a crash on the tarmac or, God forbid, in the air. Again and again, we're just seeing routine, basic things that Americans should expect to function, not functioning under the Trump administration. It's why I'm fighting so hard to chart a different path forward here in New Jersey.
It is. That is such a definition of what happens. He creates a problem, then tries to solve it sometimes, doesn't know how to solve it. It's a real pattern, and you're really seeing the impact in your state. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned ICE at airports. I think it's scaring a lot of people. We've showed a lot of footage of ICE agents sort of milling about, looking at people, getting coffee. It's hard to understand what's actually happening there. It's not reducing the lines. But when you ran for governor, you talked a lot about energy prices. We'll talk about that. You didn't focus a ton on ICE, but your tenure as governor has. I mean, you took a number of actions just yesterday. Tell us about why, kind of what prompted you to take those actions. And I'd also love to hear more about whether you think the politics around the issue have just shifted.
You know, what I learned over the last year is it's important to constantly connect with the people you're serving, to hear day in and day out about what's going on in their lives and how, as governor, as somebody elected to serve them, I can make their opportunity better, make their lives more secure, protect their kids. That's what I committed to doing, driving down costs in this affordability crisis, giving a better future to our kids, and holding government accountable for the ways in which it can do all of these things. And so I got to work right away. And that's why, as we charted out the state of emergency on utility costs, I froze rate hikes in the middle of my inaugural address as I was continuing to work to make government more accountable and put an online dashboard up so people could see where their money was going in this budget and focus the budget on taking care of our kids and their mental health and online safety. I was hearing again and again about how concerned people were about their safety, the interactions they'd had on the streets here in New Jersey with ICE agents, the masked people that were carrying weapons that refused to identify themselves or give any update on what they were doing. We were reaching out to DHS to say, what is the plan here? Why are they in certain spaces? We were seeing dangerous interactions where kids dispersed and ran away as they were going through pickup on the bus in the mornings, and principals madly trying to find out where these kids were who were supposed to be in school. So again and again, seeing dangerous situations with no accountability. So I moved. I said, look, I have pledged to keep our streets and our kids safe, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'll tell you, I can't weigh in on nationally or where people should go in any given moment. I can tell you in New Jersey, if you are fighting for the people that you serve, if you're willing to stand up to anyone, including the President of the United States, as I am, then you're going to do quite well.
Let me ask you about energy prices. I mean, because you ran on this issue, you just mentioned it. It was something you talked about relentlessly, even before Trump started a war in Iran 4 weeks ago. And I was wondering, given that you ran on the issue, but also your background in national security, when your constituents ask you, when are our gas prices going to come down? What do you tell them in this moment?
You know, I have constituents who ask me about gas prices and affordability. I have a lot of constituents, and we have National Guard deployed right now in the Middle East who want to know what the plan is. And then, you know, we just have people who were committed to, they said, I thought this president was going to end the forever wars. That's what he said. Mikey, how do you think this is going to be different? And I have to tell them this war makes no sense. I served on the House Armed Services Committee. I was in the United States Navy for almost 10 years as a helicopter pilot. I was there as we were fighting the global war on terror. And I can tell you, you can't simply remove a regime with no plan, as we did. And that's how we got into the last 20-year war. We saw what happened in Vietnam as we had no good ground strategy. And now, again, what we've basically accomplished, what Trump has accomplished here, is he has taken out the Ayatollah, replaced him with his more hardline, more anti-American son. He's actually lifted sanctions so that Iranians can sell their oil. You could see a world where they make money off that just to buy weapons to fire against Americans. And he has no strategy in sight for lowering gas prices across the country during an affordability crisis. It's striking how every time he gets engaged and involved, working people's lives get worse.
No question about it. I think people are living and experiencing, you just summarized so well. It's troops, it's people who have children who might serve, it's people paying more at the gas tank. It's all of the things you mentioned, Governor Mikey Sherrill. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.